The Sacramento Kings finally are going to the NBA playoffs, and they have really been one of the most exciting teams to watch throughout the whole season. This franchise has come a long way, and it's been a long, dreadful 18 years since they last made the playoffs. So today, I'm going to be showing the whole rebuild of the Kings and how they went from the bottom of the league to where they are now. But before I begin, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like on this video and subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds. Plus, you can always change your mind. I'm now on the road to 10k subscribers, and I know you all can help me get there very fast. And by the way, thank you all so much for getting me past 8k. It truly means the world, and we are almost at 9k and are growing super fast right now. So this video is going to start out in 2007, the year after their most recent playoff appearance, which is just crazy to say. Just to give you guys a better idea of the current NBA at the time, Lebron was still starting off his career in Cleveland, the Miami Heat were fresh off a championship, and Kobe Bryant was still averaging over 30 points per game. For the Sacramento Kings, they were of course coming off a playoff season with 44 wins and had guys like Mike Bibby, Metta World Peace, and Shariif Abdul Raheem on the roster. I'm really not going to talk too much about 2007 through 2017 in this video because in those early years, I was barely even alive during those times, but all I'm going to say is that the Kings were pretty much bad every single year. It's almost impossible how many busts they picked and bad trades they made in such a short amount of time. Anyways, fast forwarding to 2017, the Sacramento Kings were coming off of a 32-win season, and really, this year's draft was where the actual rebuild began, with Sacramento drafting De'Aaron Fox, who was a super speedy point guard out of Kentucky. I also definitely should mention that the year before this, Sacramento traded away superstar DeMarcus Cousins for Buddy Hield, Tyreke Evans, Langston Galloway, and picks, and man, fans were furious at the organization. But this was actually just one of those trades I kinda did see coming because Cousins obviously was gonna walk somewhere else, so they just got the value out of him that they could. Anyways, getting back to 2017, as I just said, De'Aaron Fox was a king, and after of course trading for Buddy Hield, the team finally had a backcourt to build around. And even though Hield was super young and still came off the bench, he could shoot the lights out. But even with all those first round picks being drafted, the Kings still once again were horrible and won only 27 games. De'Aaron Fox definitely showed some of his potential this season. He wasn't great, but for once the Kings drafted a player who wasn't automatically labeled a bust. Anyways, moving on to 2018, the Kings struck big in the NBA draft lottery, getting the second pick, but once again, as the common theme of this rebuild, they somehow completely missed on Marvin Bagley, who I even thought was going to be a good player. And the funny thing is, they also traded away their second round pick to the Trailblazers, who ended up picking Gary Trent Jr., who ended up being one of the steals of the draft. Even though Bagley was a great player in college and seemed like the safer pick and best fit, it's just crazy that Sacramento passed up on Luka Doncic, who had the highest ceiling by far. Anyways though, in 2018, the Kings rapidly improved with 39 wins, and for once, this franchise felt like it was going in the right direction, or at least we thought. De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield both took massive leaps, with Fox averaging 17.3 points per game and Hield averaging a little over 20 points, and they both shot exactly 45.8% from the field. The Kings also were 9th in the West, which kinda sucks, but also showed their improvement at the same time. So now going into the 2019 season, the Kings made a coaching change and hired Luke Walton, who they reportedly wanted in the first place in 2016. The Kings still overall had a pretty bad roster, but they did of course have a decent backcourt of Fox, Hield, and Barnes, but the problem was they had no bigs, they couldn't protect the paint, and Marvin Bagley was already one of the most injury-prone players in the league. This season, the Kings only got 31 wins, so not too much to write home about, but De'Aaron Fox was once again improving his numbers, and fans were starting to sense a little bit of hope. So going into the 2020 season, the Kings had enough and fired GM Vlade Divac and hired Monte McNair. They then went into the draft and selected Tyrese Halliburton out of Iowa, and finally, this organization made a good pick. But I can't give them too much credit because even a blind squirrel finds an acorn every now and then. But yeah, 2020 was the year that things were starting to happen. The season of course ended short due to the pandemic, but the Kings now seriously had a good backcourt for the future, and they re-signed De'Aaron Fox on a 5-year, $163 million deal. The Kings ended up with 31 wins this season, but they of course only played 72 games, so realistically they were probably going to end around the 35 win mark, and in this season, De'Aaron Fox was really starting to turn into a star, and he averaged over 25 points per game. Going into the 2021 season, the Kings had real talent throughout the roster, but they still weren't getting wins, so they made a head coaching change and hired Alvin Gentry, and then late into the season, they made an absolute blockbuster trade that nobody could have ever expected, where they traded Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield to the Pacers for big man Domantas Sabonis, Justin Holiday, and Jeremy Lamb. At the time, this trade was such a head scratcher, and it was tough to tell if the Kings front office even knew anything about their direction. They also traded away draft bust Marvin Bagley and ended the season without making the playoffs for the 16th year in a row. I hate to say it, but this franchise truly was pathetic. Anyways, going into 2022, things started to get interesting, as we of course all know. Nobody really expected anything out of this team, but after making the Sabonis trade, this team was much more balanced all around. They of course drafted Keegan Murray out of Iowa, who I think is an absolute stud and will eventually be an all-star, and other notable moves they made was trading for Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk, who turned out to be very important to the team this season. I don't think I need to do too much explaining after this, because if you have paid any sort of attention to the NBA at all this year, you know that the Kings have been the story of the season. They have a super high-powered offense led by De'Aaron Fox, and they've really just been outscoring opponents all year, and I have to say, even though I'm not a Kings fan, whenever I happen to be watching this team, I have to root for them. Of course, Light the Beam was the team motto, and it caught on very quickly and gave the team more of a reason to win. The Kings are most likely gonna end the season with 48 wins, assuming they bench everyone for the last game of the season, but this team finally, of course, made the playoffs and ended a crazy long drought, and I can't wait to see if they can make some noise and pull off a first round win, because Kings fans will go nuts if that happens. So that's pretty much all I have to say for this video. It's been a crazy ride for Sacramento, and I'm so happy to see them finally break through. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this video and what your favorite moment was from the Kings this season. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Your support truly means the world, and until next time, I will see you all later.